Okay, it's 9 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're scheduled for an hour, but those of you who don't know me, we probably won't go anywhere near an hour. But we want to make sure we give you information that's good and important and useful, but let you take care of business you need to, because we know you're busy enough without us adding more things to your plate. This is being recorded, so if you have any friends that missed the meeting, we'll post it on the Supplemental Services YouTube page later, so they can watch it, or you can go back and watch it if you want. I emailed out about a half hour ago a link to where the agenda and all the materials are. I'll add that into the chat group again, just a second, so as we get going here. But first on the agenda, Donna Post has some EL updates for us.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's having a great week. So first of all, I wanted to let everyone know that I'll be doing the second round of the initial parent notification letters for all of your initials. And going forward, we'll be doing those once a month. So at the end of each month, I'll run a batch and we'll follow the same process. The parents will get a copy in the US mail, and then you'll get a copy from Graphic Arts for the EL folders. So again, those will be happening at the end of each month. For the Summit of LPAC, the parent notification, you should have all received the letter. Did everybody receive the letter? Yeah, okay. If you didn't receive the letter, let us know. It is the state mandate that we notify parents that we are going to assess their students. So make sure that the letter has been sent home before you assess any students. Friendly reminder, reclassification deadline is February 1st. So if you have outstanding reclassifications that you're working on, make sure you let us know. If you're having trouble obtaining parent signatures, let us know. If you're gonna bump up closer to that deadline, just let us know what's out there so that we can plan accordingly. All forms for EL folders are in supplemental services. If you need any of the forms, we can district mail them to you very simply. Just send us an email and request, and you can drop those in the mail. As far as assembling your EL folders, my Mua put together some really nice handouts, kind of going step by step through each of the processes for creating a new folder, for adding to a folder, or for maintaining a folder for a student that's been reclassified. And then again, I kind of want to go over the life of an EL folder. So the EL folders will move through school sites as the student would move through the school site. If the student leaves, let's say you have an elementary student, he's in 6th grade, he leaves, doesn't come back next year. So whatever middle school that student would have been moving to, that folder is still going to move on to that school, regardless of if the student is there or not. So if the student ever returns, then we can just follow that path and hopefully be able to find that EL folder should the student return. So that categorical files. Does everyone have their labels for their CAT files? If you don't have your labels, please reach out to us ASAP. Super important. And then if you're, having troubles with your files, assembling your files, you don't know what goes where, you don't know why you have blank files, any questions at all, just let us know. And if you want me to come and take a peek at your files also, we can do a Zoom, or I can also pop out to your site. So that's all I got.
All right, thanks, Donna. Ida, so Ida here. You ready, Ida?
I am. Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping, Gary, can we open, I had some attachments. If we could open the first one, that's the percentage of CAT funds used. I wanted to kind of go over kind of where we're looking at on a global view. Is that something we can put on the screen? Okay. While we're getting that up, I'm just going to go ahead and touch upon, I know you've gotten a couple of emails on Friday and then on Monday that there have been some updates to Resource 0601, the intervention funds. So basically what we did is we allocated an additional, at minimum, 250 hours for the elementary sites for intervention due to the learning loss that's been occurring because of COVID. And then there was also discussion to add 3 extra period stipends for the intermediate and then 4 stipends for the high schools. However, because we're at half the year, those were only funded at a 0.5. So on Monday, it was decided that we wanted to, in essence, give the full allocation. So what we did is we went from 3 to 6. And again, those 6 for the intermediate are funded at a 0.5. And then for the high school, we went from 4 to 8, again, funding at the 0.5. So those changes have already been uploaded into your scenario. And I think a lot of you have already updated the scenario to balance, but I just wanted to point that out, that that's been a change. In addition, I'm going to be making some changes as we've gotten adjustments to our grant award notifications for Title I, so that'll impact our Title I schools. It's not a big bump, but you will be seeing those scenarios go out of balance probably by Monday, and I will be sending an email out just letting you know that those updates have been posted. The other thing I know we have on the agenda is our year-to-date reports. And Gary, the one I'm looking at is the one that's called percentage used of CAP funds. Okay, I'm not seeing it there. Let me see if it uploaded. Okay, well, okay. Okay, if we don't have
I don't see that. I don't see it got uploaded.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, that's my apologies. I thought it uploaded. I think what I'll do is following the meeting, I'll go ahead and email that out, or I'll go ahead and make sure that it's posted here. But what I was trying to do was show you where we're at in terms of percentage of spending. I'm hoping that all of you are running your year-to-date reports. I know that we're in the scenario a lot and we're budgeting, but I want you to remember what you have in the scenario is what you're budgeting. But you really need to take a look at your year-to-date reports, because that will show you what your pattern of spending is. Again, it could show a discrepancy between what you have budgeted in the scenario and what is actually occurring in Munis. And at the end of the day, what counts is what's in Munis. So right now, as I was taking a global look, once we get that, I get that form uploaded on the percentage used. In essence, if you've got a 10-month employee and we're looking at salaries, because January payroll has posted, when you're looking at your salaries, we should be at minimum at 50% expended at this point. On your supplies, and that would be any supplies, office supplies, instructional supplies, equipment. At this point, our purchasing deadline is coming up April 5th. I know we have spring break the week prior to that. So really we're looking at probably middle of March that we should have everything in terms of purchasing. But keep in mind, the items that we're purchasing, we want those items to be used by the students that we have in class now. So if we're waiting until March to get things ordered, those items may not be coming in until April, May. The other thing you want to keep in mind is because of COVID, a lot of the shipping has been delayed or items are out of stock. So if you choose to order at that late date and you're thinking that you've encumbered those funds, if the items do not get in by June 30th, that PO will roll over into the next year and you'll get charged in next year's budget. So right now, I really would encourage you to look at your year-to-date, look at your percentage of funds used. And if you're, and what I'm looking at right now, I'm seeing some sites are at 9% used, 30% used. We're not really where we should be in terms of how we should be spending our funds at this point in time. And again, I'll go ahead and upload kind of that global percentage so that you can take a look at your site. You'll see your percent. But then again, that's only a percentage. What you really need to do is run that year to date and look item by item to see how your spending is going. If any of you have any questions on running the year to date, there is a link in the CAP scenario that is a guide, and it gives you a step-by-step instructions. You can also give me a call if that's something that you're not able to upload, or you haven't been able to really identify how to read it. That's something I can help you with as well. Any questions on that?
Ida, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I know that we have been thinking about placing an order for computers because we have none left and we're having a lot of requests for more computers. But when I talked to our buyer, they are so back ordered that he cannot guarantee when we will get them in. So what I heard you say is if we don't get them in by July 1st, it won't come out of this year's budget, it'll come out of next year's.
If it's not in by June 30th.
And they're
Yeah,
not guaranteeing that. So
Yeah.
are we thinking that we should not be buying what is your advice on that situation? Because that's our biggest need right now on campus is computers. But we can't afford to spend all of next year's money this year. Like if we have money this year and we need to use it for computers, what would you suggest we do? Because they're not guaranteeing them by June or July.
See, that's a hard call. If the buyer, if the person you're buying from isn't able to, because even if we got to, let's say, March, and sometimes there are exceptions where purchasing will allow you to spend after the April 5th deadline, which is rare. But in that case, they're going to ask you if you've talked to the vendor and if you know whether those items are going to come in. If not, then they don't even want them to be ordered. So I really can't make that call for you. You know, you've talked to the vendor, but again, you know, the later we get, the harder it is. You know, that's why we really encourage you at the beginning of the year to identify, you know, what your spending plan is, which is what should be in the scenario, and to get those items ordered. So, you know, if they're big ticket items and you don't think they're going to come in, if you order them and they do not come in by June 30th, it's going to roll over and it's going to post against next year. So I guess I would reevaluate your spending plan to see how you're going to use your dollars.
Yeah, because that's our biggest need right now.
Mhm.
Is there any chance or possibility that our LCAP dollars that we have this year will roll over to our site next year? So that if we do purchase computers with LCAP funding and they do not come out of this year's budget because they're delayed, and right now they're delayed drastically. We ordered computers back in September that we still haven't gotten, and they don't know when we're going to get them. So it's very risky to purchase. But if we're guaranteed that our LCAP money that we have this year will roll over back to us, then we could have kind of a assurance that we're not going to go negative too soon next year or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Unfortunately, at this time, it hasn't been communicated. I know last year we had some one-time exceptions, but there hasn't been discussion as of yet whether those will be extended into next year. I can certainly ask. I have a meeting this next Thursday, and I can certainly ask, but I know I've had those questions come through, and so far it's too early for a decision to identify whether we're going to allow that into next year. So right now, the status quo is I wouldn't expect that to be carried over.
Help, Ida, help. Don't just ask beg.
Yeah, I know. I just want to be, I want to be realistic,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't want to give you false hope, and I can only, you know, communicate what's been communicated to me. But you're not the first one that's asked about that, and I have brought that forward. And at this point, I haven't been given a go ahead that we should expect that. So any other questions on that? Okay.
And I have a meeting tomorrow and division with this area superintendent, so I can kind of bend their ear and encourage them to
Please
pass
do.
that along
Tell
too.
them that our what we're looking like on campuses in regards to technology, I'm sure especially at Title I schools, we have over 500 computers out and some of them were brand new. And we're already getting them returned broken and not, so it's very desperate as to what we will have next year, and not knowing what it's going to look like next year. We can't count on the computers that we put out. And so if we can't spend our money or it's going to come out of next year's, it's really like, not just ask nicely, like I'll come and beg, like we're going to be in a situation where our kids won't have access next year if we can't use our dollars this year. And even the dollars that we have this year are just going to put a little dent in it. It's not going to solve it. But if we could use anything we have to foresee that problem coming, it would really help. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, well, thank you. Like I said, I'll bring that forward, and I know Gary bringing that forward, we'll put that on the table. The other thing I just wanted to Chen, is I know that there have been, quite a few questions will come forward on how you can use your money or whether you can use, Title I money or Title III or your LCAP intervention. I've attached just some of the guidelines for your reference. So if you go to, what is it, Gary? The supplemental services where we've got the agenda, I've attached some guidelines for Title I, Title III. So that should be able to answer some of your questions. In addition, I've also attached a discretionary funding guide that goes through not only our categorical, so here you can see our Title I, our Title III. And then Gary, if you go up to the funding source guideline, down, keep going down. There, right there, yeah. That one is also linked in the scenario, but that's a nice guide that will not only give you your categorical information, but it'll give you, what your discretionary monies can be used for, what your LCAP monies can be used for, your grade span, and just a general description. So this is a nice kind of succinct guide if you've got any questions on how you can use your money, not only categorical, but some of the other funding sources that may be available at your site as well. Let me see here. Are there any questions that you might have? I know I've talked about training needs. If you or people at your, staff at your site would need Munis training, please reach out to me. And what I'd like to do is just kind of gather a group rather than one by one, because usually it'll take me to go over not only Munis, but the scenario. That's probably a 2-hour time frame. So if I've got requests, maybe I can kind of put a group together and go through some of those items with you. But anyway, I'm here. If you need any assistance, please feel free to reach out. And I think hopefully before the meeting's over, I'll attach that percentage used so that you can just, by site, you can see how you're doing on each of your categorical funding sources by percentage. And then again, I encourage you, run that year to date and see how you're doing, okay? Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ida. Okay, moving on to the ELD assessment. Kind of a background on the ELD assessment. I mean, first off, whenever, coming from the assessment department, I always think of what's the purpose of any assessment. And ideally, it's to help guide instruction. But we realize this is an interesting year. And if we can use it to guide instruction, that's best. But sometimes we have to adjust just to make sure we're doing what we need to. We are required to monitor the progress of our English learners. So I hate to say it's a box that needs to be checked, but legally we are required to monitor the progress. If we can use the assessment to guide instruction, even better. But time is at a premium right now, and we understand that. So there's been a couple tweaks to the second semester ELD assessment to help you guys out also. That being said, secondary, I know Sharon sent out an email yesterday, and it talked a little bit about the second semester. Instead of doing the unit test, now you can do just one of the clusters or the selections based on what grade you're in, which is good. That should limit quite a bit the amount of time it takes to administer the test. Elementary, we are still required to do the benchmark assessment. But we have been able to extend the window. So you have until the last day of school to deliver that test, just because it is illegal. I mean, we're obligated to monitor our students, and that's how we monitor the progress is with that benchmark. If you have time to deliver it now, it's a great prep for the LPAC. It's a great way to guide instruction. But we understand that may not be realistic if you have a large amount of students to assess to get it done before that timeline, the original deadline. So that has been extended through the end of the school year. That being said, we have Kim Alto. A huge thank you goes out to Kim. She's made a couple of videos that we're going to show. They're very short because when we administer the assessment, not everybody's back on campus, so it has to be done remotely. So there's some videos for you to use with the teachers, with students to take a look at the test. So let me share my screen again. Okay. First off, just lighten the mood a little bit. Look how cute. Okay, here we go. And I need to share my screen with audio. So hold on just a second, sorry. Sorry about that. One more try. Okay, so this is how to get into Benchmark and set up a test to deliver Benchmark remotely.
Once you're logged into Elluminate, you want to click on the yellow tile that says
You guys hear it
Benchmark
okay?
ELD in Term 2. Once here, you will click on the correct grade level for the assessment you are giving. If you don't already have your test booklet or your teacher materials, click on Materials. From here, you're going to click on Materials again, and then you'll be able to download the teacher manual and print it out for your reference if needed. Once you've done that, you're going to go back and we are going to click on Administer. Next, Online Testing. And then you will click on Test with Quick Code. This can be done days before you give the assessment. Once you click on that button, you will be given an access code. You want to make sure to write that down and give that code to students to take the assessment. When students are taking the assessment, you want to go to Live Proctoring. In live proctoring, you are able to see which question the students are on and answering. You will also want to split your screen so that you can have both Zoom and your live proctoring open. You are able to do this by pressing the Windows key on your computer and either the right or left arrow so that it splits the screen. The other thing you can do is that you can pause the assessment for all students by pressing this pause button. This will stop everyone and it will make it so that they don't press finish if they're not supposed to finish the assessment yet. Remind students that this is not a timed test and that they have as long as they need to complete it. Additionally, remind them that if there are any issues during the test with hearing, to have them raise their hands so that you can stop and repeat what is needed. Lastly, when proctoring online, it is recommended that the test examiner read the test questions for the students. Students will then mark their answers in Elluminate.
Okay, so that's the first one on giving the assessment. Next one, I like how short these are.
Once the assessment has been completed, you will need to grade each student's written portion and put in the speaking scores. You have rubrics for each of these domains in your teacher's manual. Once in your assessment, click on Administer. Next, you will click on Enter Edit. Now click on Find Students. Once here, you will want to click on Constructed Responses. You will be able to see and grade all students' responses for each question. You can select their score by using the drop-down menu. You can arrow through each question by clicking on the arrows. Once done, click Save. For the speaking portion, click on the grid view. Here you can scroll through to find the speaking portion. Again, you will be able to use the drop-down menu to select the score for each student. Once you are done, press Save. Once you are done with all the scores, you need to print a report for each student and put it into their EL folder. To print a report, you will go to Students, Student Profile. You will then select your student. Scroll down until you find Assessments. You will notice the assessment is there. Click on Download, and then you will be able to open and print this assessment and put it into your EL folder.
Nice. And that was the longest video. Two more. We'll get into reading and writing next, how to administer that.
When giving the listening, reading, and writing portion of the assessment, make sure to have your teacher's manual ready. When proctoring online, it is recommended that the test examiner read the test questions for the listening domain. Students will mark answers in Illuminate. Please make sure that students recognize that question 1L stands for question 1 listening. As you go through, you will see that you get to question 3R would be question 3 for reading. When students are at the writing portion of the test, they will be able to type in this area. For students not able to type, have them write on a piece of paper and submit a picture of their written work to you through email, Google Classroom, or any method of your choosing. Remember that during the reading portion of this test, it is not timed. Students can have as much time as they need. For the speaking portion of the test, the assessment is given one-on-one. Make sure to have one copy per student of the Speaking ELD Interim Assessment Answer Key as shown here, prior to starting the speaking portion of the assessment. You will read the questions aloud to the students. Once the student gives you a response, you will mark the rubric immediately after the student speaks. For the test type Summarize an Academic Presentation, students in grades 3 through 6 can take notes while the teacher is reading the test. Students' notes will help with their oral summarization. We recommend that the teacher read the text instead of auto-streaming the narrative when proctoring online.
And that part's key because it's so much easier to finish this test online when the teacher just reads the narrative as opposed to trying to use the audio and stream it from a different site. Can be done, but it's just simpler to have the teacher do the text. And there's even a video to show students what they need to do on their end.
Hi students! When you're getting ready to take your ELD assessment with your teacher online, the first thing you're going to want to do is minimize your Zoom screen. You do this by pressing the minus sign in the top right-hand corner of your screen. If you don't have that minus sign, you press the escape key, which is on your keyboard in the top left-hand side. You'll press ESC, escape, and then this minus sign should come up. We're going to go ahead and press the minus sign right now. Notice now how my picture is small. You can take the picture and move it anywhere on your screen, but this will let you know that your teacher is there to help you while you're taking your test. The next thing is in Clever, you're going to want to scroll down and find the button that says Illuminate Education with Quick Code Testing, and we're going to click on that. Next, the student login is your name, just like you log into your computer, where it really has that 001 at the end. You then are going to put in the access code that your teacher gave you. Now that I have my access code, I'm going to click Next. When you do, you want to make sure that that is your name there and that you're taking the right test, and then you're going to click Confirm. Once here, I'm going to go ahead and move my picture now because notice here in the top right-hand corner, it says Begin Test. That is where we need to press. We will begin our test, and your teacher, you will be listening. This first part of the test is where you are listening. Notice here on the left side, if I click on it, I'm able to scroll through and see these questions. On the right side, notice here it says one listening because we're doing one listening question. And we can scroll through on this side. So you have two scrollers. We have a scroll for our test booklet, and you have to click over here, or you can move here on the side, up and down. And then on the right side, we can move and scroll for the different questions that we are on. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is these three dots in the top right-hand corner. If you click on that, You in this area can make your screen bigger and smaller. So if I click on the plus sign, I can make this bigger and easier to see, or I can also click the minus sign to make it smaller. Once you are done taking your test, you are going to click finish. Now, if you have to come back later, you're going to press the pause button. But if you have finished your assessment, you will click finish test. Notice that once I click finish again, and then I have to click finish again. So make sure that you're done, because once you click finish, you cannot go back. I hope this helps. Have a great day.
Okay, those are some very good videos. You can use those, and they're in the file that you were emailed. So you can use those for training your staff, training your students. Ideally, we can give the assessments in person, but we know that's not realistic for a lot of our students. So that's one way to get it done remotely. Again, thanks to Kim for doing those videos. She's pretty amazing. Any questions on the assessments before we move on?
Gary, I have a quick question.
Okay.
Are we allowed to bring new students on campus to assess? So obviously we're not allowed to bring new kids on campus kind of in general, but I don't see any way I can have a kinder or a first or a second grade kid do this assessment online. So can we bring new kids back to assess, or is that still a no-go?
My understanding is that's still a no-go. If they're not currently on the campus, we're not supposed to bring them onto campus.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
a second question, you might not have any idea on this, but in trying to schedule all of these, do we have any more information on SBAC testing in the spring? So if we're trying to schedule LPACs and all of these tests along with our SBAC testing, do we have any more idea about that?
Thursday, you should be getting an email from Rob, who's now over assessment. He's going to be talking about LPAC mainly, I think, trying to get more information on ways to deliver that. But I'll let him know that you have a question about SBAC also.
Okay, yeah, it's
I'm
just
not sure.
it's challenging with the amount of time we have to try to schedule all of these.
Yeah,
And I don't have that many EL students, but some people have a lot. And so trying to schedule all three of these is going to be
that's tough.
That's-
Yeah, but that's the main reason we were able to extend the window for at least the benchmark assessment to the end of the year, just to give you a little more flexibility to get the test done. But again, along the line, LPAC, expect an email from Rob tomorrow with more information on LPAC. So there's been a lot of questions on that, and I'll ask them to include something about SBAC as well.
Gary, can I interject to answer
Please.
Jonathan's question?
Mhm.
Okay, so
course.
Jonathan, I actually gave an assessment to a kindergartner yesterday just to test the system. And so with our kindergartners, I just screen shared. I printed in the front of the teacher's manual. You guys have all of the score sheet. And so I printed a score sheet for each of those students. Your kinder, first and second, you might want to do them one-on-one. And all I did was screen shared. So on Zoom, I screen shared. So the kids, so I am control of scrolling the assessment up and down. And then I'm asking the question and then marking on hard copy their answers. Once I was done with that, and for the writing piece, it was a little bit tricky because it was a kindergartner. And so I tried as best I can, kept telling him to just on his whiteboard and marker, write down the answer and pull it up to the camera. And so I was able to see his response and then scored it right then and there. After I assessed the student on all 4 domains, for the kindergarten, it did take me an hour for the whole assessment. And then after when I was done, I went back into Illuminate and just edit his scores. So I was able to do that with my kindergartners, the one kindergarten yesterday. And so that's gonna be my plan for my kindergartners, first and second graders. Grades 3 through 6, you can do them by grade level. Remember, the ELD assessment is not by grade span like on the LPAC. So unfortunately, you'll have to assess them by grade level, and they should be independent enough to do it in Illuminate, except for the speaking piece. The speaking, it will have to be one-on-one. So Jonathan, hopefully that answers your question. And for any Title I schools out there who does have a lot of EL students, that's how I did it. I'm, phone call away if you guys want to call me and I'm asking a question as well, or on the or here if you guys have questions.
Thank you, Maya.
I just wanted to share. I also started giving it to first graders, and I actually logged in as the first grader on Illuminate and shared my screen so that I was, as I was reading the questions and answer choices, I was entering them live into Illuminate as the student. And then when it got to the writing part, they, just like Maya said, they held it up on a whiteboard, and I typed what they put into Illuminate. So then afterwards I went to InterEdit. That was the easy way to grade them right there, because I had typed what they had written on their whiteboard. So anyway, and it took about an hour per student also.
You guys are awesome. Any other questions or ideas? Okay. And of course, the goal of any EL student is to be reclassified. And along those lines, we have updated, we talked about earlier in the year, the monitoring report for our RFEP students. I want to go over how to access that again real quick, because it's kind of a nice thing. So on the agenda, there is a hyperlink in there, or you can just go to Report Central/reports and follow the trail there to get to it. But I like hyperlinks when we can. And it comes to Report Central. And the key about Report Central is it's permissions based on your position. So if you're a GIS or a principal or an LD, you should have permission to access these reports. If you're a psychologist or a teacher in special assignment, you probably do not. So you'll need to work with technology department to get permission, which is say MUA, or just have your GIS run the reports for you. So all you do, you select your school, and hopefully will auto default to your own school. And then you view the report. And I'm not gonna do it now because I don't want to get into confidentiality things. I'm showing the students, but it will, the old green form you used to fill out for students, like with their current grades, their CELT scores, their LPAC scores, their SPAC scores, it'll auto-populate all of that. So all you need to do now is double check that it has all the information, because if the information is not in Zangle or not in the district's database, it can't auto-populate that. So if it's missing a score for some reason, you'll need to hand fill that in. But then you can give that to the teacher for monitoring and put that in their folders as well, because we are required to monitor our EL students for 4 years. And this is just a nice, easy way. Instead of hand filling out a form for every single student, you can just hit print and it'll print them all out, filled out for you. So it's a quick, easy way to double check that. Any questions about that? Cool. You guys are good. And then just a couple reminders, gate plans. Gate plans were due November, and we got about half of them turned in. So if you could double check with your gate coordinators, make sure they've submitted their gate plan, that would be good. And then also just a reminder that you need to, for the ELAC and SSC Zoom attendance reports, if you print those out and include them with the packets when you turn those into Tam, that's how we kind of take attendance there. And she's the expert on all that. And then just a reminder again, expect that email from Rob tomorrow with more clarification on LPAC, whether it's remotely, in person, how that's going to work. Hopefully he's going to be able to get some answers tomorrow out to you guys. Because I know there's been a lot of anxiety and stress about LPAC. That starts in next week, right? So it'll be good to get that to you. And that's everything on our agenda. Are there any questions or comments or ideas you've been doing that might benefit everybody else? Okay.
Gary, I have a question.
Sure.
I believe there might be a way for students to give the adult that they are Zooming with mouse control when they Zoom. And if that is the case, is it possible for our younger students, if we were able to go in and maybe log in for them and navigate to pages for them, so that they're not really having to do a lot of the technology part of it and concentrate more on the content of being assessed with the benchmark assessment?
So Zoom allows you to basically remote into and control the student's computer?
So I've done it with a staff member who is having difficulty with something on their screen, and I'm pretty sure students can do it too, because I've heard of some of our speech therapists using the tool. But I just want to know if we're allowed to do that, or if that is, I don't know, stepping over a boundary of some sort with
Benchmark.
our, navigating for that.
No, for benchmark, I don't think that'd be a problem. I mean, as long as you're not like, circling the answers as you're asking the questions kind of thing.
Right.
If it would help the students, then I don't think that'd be a problem at all with benchmark.
Okay. I'll try it with a student, and then I'll create something and send it out to everybody. Just
Cool.
if you haven't done it before, maybe it might be of some help with your younger kids.
So there's you can do it with students. There's a setting in your Zoom meetings you have to activate called remote access, I think is what it is. And then when they share their screen with you, you just can go up and request that of the student. We do it to troubleshoot stuff all the time. So it is an option. You can then remote in and control their computer. And it's helpful when you can show them that, they were on YouTube for the last 3 hours and those type of things. So it is something that is useful. You just have to make sure that it is checked in your settings. It's defaulted to not active, so you have to activate that in your settings.
Yeah. Thanks,
No, that's a great
Jonathan.
thing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Stella. All right. I'll hang out in the Zoom for a while, but that's it for the agenda. Thank you, everybody, for coming. You guys really are amazing. Hopefully we gave you some information that will be useful to you today. And I'll hang out if you have any questions, or you can call or email anytime. Have a good afternoon. Have a good